Hello, I'm Irma Cedeño-Verdin. I am the founder and CEO of Diáfano.
Hi, I'm Robin Weissberger, Associate Director for Administration with the Getty Museum in Los Angeles.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we're going to talk about training museum staff to engage multilingual audiences, a language program model. This is our agenda for today: who we are, our voice in the multilingual space, why multilingual engagement matters, ways to engage multilingual audiences, the language program model for multilingual engagement, the Getty Museum case study, a blueprint to launch a language program at your own museum, our impact across museums, and then we're going to finish with common questions and wrap up. Again, I'm Irma Cedeño-Verdin, founder and CEO of Diáfano. Diáfano is a language learning company at the intersection of education, culture, and accessibility. I founded the company because I really wanted to make language learning accessible at the workplace, and I believe that language is a bridge to create meaningful connections. We partner with museums to help them reach broader communities and broader audiences. We've worked with over 3,000 students. 97% of museum participants would recommend Diáfano to a colleague or a friend. Some of our partners include the Getty Museum, who will be speaking with you today, New York Historical, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Guggenheim, Museum of Science Boston, Frick Collection, National Baseball Hall of Fame, the Whitney Museum, and the Minneapolis Institute of Art. Why does multilingual engagement matter? It matters because there's a language gap in the United States. 22% of people in the US speak a language other than English at home, according to the US Census Bureau. If we look at what those languages are, 41.3 Spanish speakers, 3.4 Mandarin Chinese and Cantonese. These languages are followed by Tagalog, Vietnamese, and Arabic. When it comes to museums and their roles, this is a tremendous opportunity because museums are seen as education hubs, cultural hubs, and not just as an art space or an exhibition space. Creating a sense of belonging and a welcoming environment is part of what museums are supposed to do. However, it's challenging because staff often feel unequipped to engage with these multilingual audiences. This communication gap can lead to lower attendance or to lower engagement from non-English speaking visitors. And unfortunately, it is true that 50% of museums have not returned to their pre-pandemic attendance, according to the AAM. Now, there are great ways to engage multilingual audiences. Some of the most common approaches are written translations that includes website, brochures, exhibits, signage, labels. And the Getty will talk to you about some of some of the things they were doing before they actually built their language program. And of course, it also includes interpretation services such as live interpreters, especially for ASL, and audio guides. What I propose, it's a modern approach. It's language training for increased access, increased connection, and trust. The American Alliance of Museums Expo in 2025 is focused on trust. And we believe what better way to build trust with an audience than through communication, through a common language. And that language is not necessarily English. This approach includes live virtual classes with professional instructors, curriculum that is workplace and museum relevant. And of course, there should be an emphasis on culture, there should be hands-on learning, and there should be practical conversation. If you wonder why invest in a language program, there could be many reasons, and every museum thinks of it differently. It's a great way to strengthen your community engagement. You want your staff to connect with diverse multilingual communities in a way that's more effective. It's a way to support staff development and retention. Not only is this program a potential professional development opportunity, but it's also a great personal development opportunity for staff. This is a way to extend your bilingual programming. So if you've been focused on having multilingual communication in your materials or your signage, this could be aligned with that programming as well. What a great way to boost visitor experience, to have your staff be better able to assist, enhance access, and hospitality. And this is also something that grows over time with a clear return on investment. You can start small and you can grow the program over time. I want to talk to you about what the language program model for multilingual engagement should look like. The language program model is really a strategic program for all museum types, for all staffing levels, and for different budgets. And it should include four basic things according to us and what we've seen works and is successful. It should include language basics. These are practical skills that will help your staff greet, assist, and connect with visitors because what we're really looking for is connection. It should include cultural tools, key strategies for cultural awareness. You should not only be learning about the language, you should be learning about the culture and the history of that language, of that community. And it's focused on respectful engagement. And we think this is particularly important to emphasize for American Sign Language, for example, where deaf culture is completely different from hearing culture. It uses language access as a common bond. So this positions language as a long-term tool that brings staff together. It helps to shape your organization and trust within your community. And it has workplace application and beyond the workplace. It fosters a culture where staff are encouraged to use their language skills, but it's not only in the workplace, it's also for them to take it to their communities and for them to apply it to their personal lives. Now, I've laid down the groundwork for what a language program can look like at your organization, but I would like for you to hear it from someone from an institution that has already experienced it and has already implemented. So I'm going to pass it over to Robin from the Getty Museum.
Thank you, Irma. The Getty Museum is one of four programs comprising the Getty organization, committed to exhibiting, conserving, and understanding the world's artistic and cultural heritage with our public online and in person at the Getty Center and the Getty Villa. In my role, I have oversight for the museum's budget, employee relations, personnel management, building operations, and collection information and access. And pertinent to this discussion, professional development and our virtual language learning opportunities for our museum employees. Being situated in Los Angeles, within the Southern California region, we reside in a very large Spanish-speaking area, of which many of our employees and visitors are bilingual. Over the last 5+ years, Getty has made a concerted effort to produce internal bilingual materials for our staff. That's everything from internal communications to HR forms and other business materials. At the same time, we also introduce bilingual public and internal wayfinding signage across both our sites. And the museum created our bilingual initiative and began to assess how our collections are represented in person and online, with the goal of first integrating bilingual Spanish labels and texts in our exhibition galleries, then moving to our permanent collection galleries. In conjunction with this initiative, we began to assess what we could do for our museum staff, which encompasses employees, interns, and agency temps, determining how best to equip them with the tools and resources needed for their daily interactions with our visitors and staff Getty-wide. This led to us finding the right type of opportunity to pursue Spanish language classes. I want to mention that offering language classes to Getty staff is not new. When the Getty Center opened to the public approximately 27 years ago, Getty offered in-person language classes to staff, Spanish, French, Italian, but ceased at some point 12, 15 years ago. So when we were developing our initiative, museum staff were very keen that we bring back language classes, most notably through our museum task force, a group of museum employees that meet on a regular basis to make recommendations to museum leadership on matters specific to the museum, especially those on diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion. At the time, we were also in a pandemic where our staff were all working from home, so in-person classes were not feasible. We needed to find a way to offer virtual language classes through Zoom, which Getty provides the application to all staff, making it easier and consistent as a virtual meeting platform. And we knew that we wanted Spanish to be our first language we offered, as noted earlier. Our museum leadership determined that it was very important that these language classes be held during work hours, not during staff lunch breaks or after work while they're on their own time. It was also our commitment to staff that this was an integral element of our business operations. We looked at perhaps partnering with a local community college that might be able to tailor a virtual program for us, but it wasn't feasible nor flexible enough for our purposes. During my research, I came across an article on AAM's website that described what the Met Museum was offering to their staff through fano. So I did a bit more research online about them. In speaking with Irma and then a few staff at the Met, I realized that we had the perfect organization that could meet our needs, and we began to pursue what that would look like for the Getty Museum. Although we knew Spanish was our first language and that we were committed to offering 2 classes, we knew our first step was to gauge staff interest and their levels of comprehension. Our goal was to find where we could have the most impact on staff participation. So in November 2022, we sent an all museum staff email informing them about our commitment to offer virtual Spanish language classes and asking them to complete an online survey. We also wanted to offer staff the opportunity to jumpstart their language learning, so we included a link to Duolingo's free self-directed Spanish for English speakers course. And lastly, we reminded staff that through Getty's Educational Assistance Program, employees could be reimbursed for Spanish language classes or other languages through an accredited college or university, such as our community colleges in the area. We had 56 museum staff respond to the survey, approximately 28% of then current staff, and determined that the most impact would be by offering a class for beginners with some basic knowledge of Spanish and another one for advanced beginners. We also determined that the museum would provide all course books for the classes. We then sent another all museum staff email informing them of our results and asked them to sign up for classes. We reminded staff that they needed to secure their supervisor's approval. And at the same time, we reminded our supervisors that it was important for them to support their staff with this language learning opportunity. We had 29 staff sign up for beginners with some knowledge of Spanish and 16 staff sign up for the advanced beginners class. Virtual classes commenced in March 2023 and were an hour in duration during business hours. Classes were held virtually for 10 weeks, led by instructors provided by fano. There was some attrition over the course of the semester, that's to be expected, but we were able to continue with another 10-week series of classes in August 2023. Then in October 2023, we wanted to expand the number of classes per semester from 2 to 4, committing to offer these classes on an annual basis, and added to the beginners with some knowledge of Spanish and advanced beginner Spanish classes, a complete beginner Spanish class, no knowledge needed, and a beginner's American Sign Language class, each class averaging 10 to 15 students. We are now completing our second year of offering these classes and will continue to assess how best to make the most impact to staff participation. We recently surveyed our staff again and share with you some of their comments. I have so deeply appreciated as an option. I've learned a lot about Spanish, different words, idioms across different Latin American countries, and used Spanish for research. The teachers have been so patient and they really do a lot with an hour. I really appreciate that the museum has made efforts to make these classes available at different proficiency levels. Typically, these types of courses cost a lot of money and rarely offered at any workplace. Bravo, Getty Museum, love it. And another, I think what the Getty has done is great for inclusion. And lastly, I really value and appreciate this initiative. It has really helped me learn Spanish, which is very useful when we translate media and captions. And with that, I turn it back to Irma.
Thank you so much for that, Robin. And thank you so much for sharing the entire experience of what it's been like so that other museums can get an idea of how they can go about doing the same and what it takes exactly. And thank you for sharing those testimonials. And that really resonates with us because that's really why we're here to bring access to employees so that they can have they can learn these languages and put them to practice. I would like to also share how we go about measuring success at a museum like the Getty. And we look at four different things. We look at, of course, program duration, the consistency of it. We look at program reach. We look at participant commitment, and we look at the language confidence. The Getty, as Robin mentioned, has had 2 years of successful programming. They have a program reach of about 21% of museum staff. 94% of Getty participants would want to take a class again in the future. And 80% of participants feel more confident in their ability to use the language because of the program. So these are very solid numbers, and these are some of the numbers that you want to look at when you implement your programs. I want to offer you a blueprint to how you also can launch a language program. The first thing is you really want to cover your basics. You want to identify what are your language needs, both for your visitors and your staff. A great way to do this is to look at your demographics. What state are you in? What city? What community? And who are the people that are visiting your museums? But also listen to your staff. What languages do they say they want to learn? What visitors do they say that they're encountering? You want to define a budget and you want to define some goals. You want to get support. Partner with an organization, whether it's us or another organization, just make sure that your mission and vision is aligned and that the goals are clear. Number three, you want to share this initiative internally. Let your staff know. They're going to be very excited to know that this is something you're even considering. Ideally, you conduct some surveys because you really want to know what staff are thinking, what will work for them, what are their language levels, what their proficiency looks like, what experience they have with these languages. And you want to set a timeline. When do you want to launch? What do you want that program to look like? And then four, get ready to launch. Really promote the program, open signups, and start. And number five, you want to consistently evaluate, gather feedback, make changes as needed, and get ready for the next semester. We look at language learning as a long-term strategy. So our classes are divided into 4 semesters a year, which are fall, winter, spring, and summer. When one semester ends, each semester is about 10 weeks, we move on to the next semester. These are some of the frequently asked questions that we get asked by potential museum partners. How long is a language program? Most of our partners sign up for at least 1 year of studies. How long is each session? Usually a class has 1 hour per week over 10 weeks a semester, and there are 4 terms or semesters in a year. How are the classes structured? Classes are interactive and tailored to museum needs. So no 2 museums will have the exact same classes. And also American Sign Language is going to look very different from Spanish. Are the classes online or in person? The classes are held virtually. How is scheduling handling? We work with partners to create not just a consistent schedule, but an inclusive schedule. So that means that if there's a team within your museum that has a standing meeting every Tuesday at 1 p.m., that is not a time that we want to have language classes. And we try to do in our surveys, we try to include questions around what schedule would work. How do you measure success? We use different methods of measuring success, and we're going to share a little bit of that with you now. We created an impact report with Capital One Bank, and we look at four things. We look at increased language confidence. So, do participants feel more confident to use the language because of the language program? We look at workplace relevance. Are participants applying what they're learning, or do they expect to apply what they're learning to the workplace? We look at connections. Are participants meeting other interesting people from other departments and bond in with them? And we looked at improved retention. Do participants feel that like this investment in this professional development opportunity will make them more likely to want to stay at that organization? What we see is that 85% of participants feel more confident in their ability to use the language. In terms of workplace relevance, 74% have applied or are planning to apply what they're learning directly to the workplace. 80% of participants say the course helped them build connection in the workplace. And this is super interesting because there is a lot of interdepartmental learning. And in terms of improved retention, 62% of participants said that the class makes them more likely to stay at their organization. These are very solid numbers, and these are numbers that you want to look at as you continue to build your program. I also want to share a little bit of what some of the museum professionals and participants say about language programming. At the Guggenheim, learning ASL creates the opportunity to greet visitors to our museum, make them feel welcome, and provide any assistance or information that will enrich their experience. ASL is a very important program to us, and just like the Getty, there are many other museums that have ASL classes. I would highly encourage museums when they are thinking of a language program to definitely consider American Sign Language. At New York Historical, we're learning a ton and having fun. It has been a bonding experience for staff members across different parts of our organization, and I can already see how much we've learned. This is important because we want the classes to be informative, we want the classes to be educational, but we also want the staff to have some fun because language learning can be a lot of work, of course, and it's important that they have a class where they feel engaged and they're having fun. From the Getty, a great step in the right direction so that we're equipped to welcome our local diverse community. From the Baseball Hall of Fame, our professor is extremely good, and she understands what our primary goal is and the reason for taking the course. The National Baseball Hall of Fame has an upcoming Japanese baseball exhibit. So when I was talking earlier about knowing what your goals are with your language learning program, it could be different. It could be a long-term professional development strategy, it could be an inclusion strategy, or it could be something like the National Baseball Hall of Fame where you have an exhibit coming up in 2026 or 2027, and you want the staff to be able to be fully aligned with that exhibit and welcome visitors that speak that language. From the Whitney, this is both an important step to help staff make the Whitney a more inclusive place for visitors and artists, and a much appreciated form of professional and personal development. It's rare when you find a form of professional development that is also personal development, which is why I think language learning is such a unique opportunity for employees. From the Minneapolis Institute of Art, it'll for sure be useful for any staff who interact with visitors and for all staff, it should aid in us understanding other cultures a little better. Let's not forget about the cultural component of learning a language. We've talked a lot today about building a language program. These are some of the key takeaways. Why multilingual engagement is paramount and how to use a language program to connect with multilingual audiences. We've given you a blueprint to successfully introduce a language program at your museum. We've talked about how the Getty Museum went about implementing a successful language program and how you can do so too. And we went over common questions when implementing a language program. What would be some next steps for you? I'm including some resources on the next page, and you're welcome to connect with us. Both Robin and I will share our information, and you're welcome to reach out to us and explore how a language program can support your museum's vision, your museum mission, and your community needs. These are some recommended resources for inspiration for further reading. I'm including the website to our work with museums. I'm including some articles from the American Alliance of Museums that I wrote for ideas to create linguistic accessibility at museums, and also celebrating deaf culture, how 5 leading museums approach accessibility and ASL year round. And also, I'm including a PBS episode from Art 21, Spanish Lessons. This is a look at how the Marion Goodman Art Gallery created a Spanish program exhibit with our help, and how interesting that exhibit was, and how it had different people come into the space to learn Spanish. That's it for now. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our contact information is on here, and thank you so much for your time.